Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Eid Mubarak, inshallah. Well, if you're on the West Coast, perhaps you have a couple of hours left to go. But for most of us, Eid Mubarak, and Alhamdulillah, we made it, and we are blessed to have had the ability to fast for those who did fast. And I pray that we always have the health necessary to fast Ramadan and get its and enjoy its blessing and enjoy the feeling when Ramadan is over and we're able to eat again and really appreciate that privilege that we have. So yeah, Eid Mubarak to everyone. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in during Ramadan. I got fresh cut, ready for Eid. By the way, something that people don't think about when they opt to get a hair transplant is that you now have an extra expense every month, which is the haircut. And I remember when last time I had hair and I used to go to a barber to get my haircut, it was like $15, maybe $20. Now, if you want a haircut, it's like $60, $70 if you want both your haircut and beard trimmed. It's like $70. And that's before a tip. So for those who perhaps are thinking about getting a transplant, think about that as well. I'm not saying that I wouldn't have done it. Of course I would have. But it's just an extra expense to think about, which highlights really how much inflation is going on as the Fed keeps printing money. Um, a lot of the value of the dollar is being diluted. And over time, things are getting more and more expensive. We'll talk about that. What I want to really emphasize in this live is the signal and ignore the noise. There's a lot of volatility in the markets. I expect there's going to be a lot of volatility in the days and weeks ahead as we approach the halving. So let's talk about what exactly we should be focused on in this period so that we don't mess it up, because we have a very big opportunity here in front of us to make a lot of money in this bull cycle, inshallah. So I want you all to take advantage of it. So without further ado, let's get started. Not financial advice. Be sure to do your own due diligence before making any investing decisions. And so I don't forget the Ramadan offer, 35% off all memberships, ends in just a few hours. So use code Ramadan 2024 to get you 35% off. We'd love to have you as part of our team in PIF. So the market is basically hanging on every word from the Fed at this point. They really are split in terms of whether we're going to get a Fed cut or interest rate cut in June or not. To be honest, I think the percentages here, the probabilities here are probably right. There's basically could go either way. There's definitely, I think, a 0% chance of a 50 basis point cut, but it's either going to be 25 basis points or no cut at all. And tomorrow, the inflation numbers come out. So there will likely be a lot of volatility up or down. The market sentiment seems to be pessimistic. Certainly, if you looked at some of the market movements today, anticipating hotter than desired inflation numbers. And March numbers are kind of unique in that they're the first numbers from this year that won't be dramatically affected by seasonal adjustments. So January and February typically have some seasonal skewness to them. So the March will be the first numbers that we get that I think will accurately reflect where inflation is at. And so they'll have a really big impact on the Fed's thinking. The Bitcoin halving is in just 10 days. The supply of new Bitcoin is going to be cut in half. Economics 101, if demand stays the same or increases and supply uh, gets cut in half, the price should go up. And in fact, this is what we've seen in previous halvings. So these green lines are the previous three halvings. And we saw that in each of those halvings, you can see if you zoom out, the price appreciated quite substantially over the next 12 months. Now, if you go to the second halving, so the second green line from the left, you can see that there was a dip right after the 2016 halving. You can barely see it actually, but then it quickly recovered, and we had massive appreciation after that. So the point here being, if you were at that time, you thought, this was a big deal, but if you zoomed out, this was just a blip in the overall march upwards for Bitcoin's price. And so, if we do get a pullback similar to what we had in 2016 after the halving, it's not going to be that consequential in the grand scheme of things. So, make sure you focus on the bigger picture and not get bogged down into the weeds. If you look at the net unrealized profit for Bitcoin, we are still in well below the euphoria or greed levels, which suggests that there's additional upside here. And really, as it relates to signal and noise, signal relates to the things that have data that you can um, go back and verify where you are with regards to the overall cycle. The noise are those smaller um, uh, bouts of volatility that you can experience day to day or week to week. And that's really what we need to be cognizant of ignoring and make sure that we don't uh, mistake the noise for a signal and exit too early, which I think now would be a time to exit too early in terms of the overall bull cycle. Um, and If you look at the oversold and overbought for Bitcoin, we can see that. So the gray line is trend line. The purple lines are oversold. The blue lines are overbought. Now, typically, we peak out for Bitcoin at around one standard deviation, which is the first blue line above. In the 2016, 2012, we peaked out two standard deviations above the trend line. Right now, we're one standard deviation below the trend line. So we're oversold at this point. So again, here is signal that the cycle still has a lot of gas left in the tank. If you look at the post-halving returns, something to keep an eye or to watch out for is the relative lull that we may experience after the halving. So perhaps we don't get a strong appreciation upwards or depreciation downwards. And for the next 90 days, we kind of have just choppiness. Well, that choppiness is going to basically shake out the tourists, the very short-term holders, the people who FOMO'd in and didn't really know why. But if you look beyond those 90 days, you can see there has typically been a healthy dose of appreciation afterwards. So, not saying that this may happen this time around. However, it's just something to watch out for, and you make sure that you're not one of those uh, impatient holders that gets shaken out by the choppiness that we see post halving. And keep in mind, this time around, this halving, we have something that we've never had in any of the previous halvings. We have the Bitcoin ETFs. And the Bitcoin ETFs have proven to have pretty resilient perma demand. And so the days in which we were below zero, so we had net outflows in these ETFs, were few and far between. Most of the days were positive inflows for these ETFs. And I think this ratio will actually increase uh, in favor of the net inflows as GBTC dumpage basically runs out. So remember, GBTC is the ETF that has higher fees. They didn't lower their fees, and a lot of people are dumping their GBTCs. And there were other cases of bankruptcies where you had firms that had GBTC holdings that they ended up having to sell in this course of bankruptcy. So eventually, this dumpage is going to be flushed out of the system, and we will no longer have this selling pressure from GBTC. And basically, if the first few months of these ETFs is any guide, we'll have permanent, basically, demand in these Bitcoin ETFs, which will support and raise the price of Bitcoin over time. Now, something to keep in mind, again, this is something I would classify as noise. So April 15th, we have taxes due here in the United States. And a lot of people may sell some risky assets in order to pay their tax bill. So we may see a dip in, risky assets during this time. So basically between April 15th, April 30th, we may see a dip in risk-on assets because of this selling. However, this is not something that is a permanent factor, nor is it something that's guaranteed to happen or materialize. But in case it does happen, my advice would be not to panic. As I said, the signal with regards to this cycle points upwards. Again, the offer is 35% off membership using code Ramadan 2024 at checkout. Make sure to pay Zakat al-Fitr if you haven't. You should have already, but make sure to pay Zakat al-Fitr if you haven't. Most mosques will allow you to pay online, so check your local mosque to see if they have that option. If not, contact the sheikh or someone so that you can zali them in time. Because it's very important that you pay Zakat al-Fitr. Your fasting, your acceptance of your fasting is dependent on that. So make sure you do that. In my area, they mentioned that the Zakat al-Fitr was $12 per person in the family. You may want to just be on the safe side and pay $20 per person in your family if you'd like to do that. Eid Mubarak to everyone in the chat. Thank you for coming. Merchant cash advance. Well, any loan that has a benefit to the lender is riba. So stay away from things like that. Thank you for the compliment. And yeah, enjoy your Eid, guys. Enjoy this. I really like this holiday because it's the culmination of effort that you've put in for the last 30 days. So it's not just something that comes without effort. You've actually done something that's really tough to do. So I hope you take advantage of the day. Make sure to connect with family and friends. Make sure to wear your best clothes and wear a nice smile. And yeah, until next time, make sure to take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.